Hello, and welcome to the Leaders and Their Stories podcast. I'm Richard Lowe of the Writing King and Ghostwriting Guru, and I'm here today with Daniel Holguin Sr.
Yeah, Holguin.
Holguin Sr., who's going to talk to us about a whole lot of things. I've been reading his bio, and it's very interesting, and he's got a lot to say. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am. I don't try not to define myself by this, but yes, I'm a cancer survivor, former police officer. Of many years. Just found my life, has been a lot of struggle, as a lot of folks have dealt with. I'm a father of five, and just I've learned throughout the years to be a student of leadership, and I've learned to watching how folks are treated and how folks respond to certain things. I mean, being a cop was, you came across people at their worst around the clock. And so I really became a student of people and watching how people interact. And I haven't always done it the right way. You're always my father was always a pretty strict guy. So my dad's a pastor. He passed away in early January 2024. But I really look up to the guy. He was super important to me. And I just as far as anything I've ever done, I've always considered myself, blessed to be where I am. Worked very hard to get where I'm at, and and it's been a journey. It's been a real journey.
And hopefully we'll find a little bit more about that today.
Yeah.
I remember I've had, I think, 3 or 4 encounters with police officers out in the street. I used to also do some software for San Bernardino County's police department.
Oh.
So I got to know police from in the backside, the administrative personnel and stuff. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
I remember one of those encounters was interesting. I was in Joshua Tree National Park, and they have signs 45 miles an hour, then like less than a quarter mile, 25 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour, 45 miles. And I missed one. And I'm going like 65, 70. I mean, I'm going well over the speed limit. So this cop's coming this way towards me. And I'm like, oh God, I am nailed.
There it comes. Yeah.
So he did a Yui and told me to get off into the campground. He didn't stop me in the street, which I always am thankful when police officers do that. Let me get off the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I have been stopped maybe twice before that. So what do? I get out of the car. And what does the cop do? Pulls his gun.
Oh, wow.
And he said, get on the ground, blah, blah, blah. And he's like,
Yeah.
I explained things to him, and he said, okay, I understand. Get back in the car. And he explained why he wanted me in the car. He said, put my hands on the steering wheel. He was really nice. Give me a warning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because it was quite scary to me. I've never had a gun pointed at me before. This is many years ago. I was like, no, I'm just a cool guy,
Yeah. Hold on. Slow down.
I just got out of the car because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. He's like, oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. My dad used to do the same thing. So yeah, absolutely.
So, and then when I'm in a store, the other day I was at a pizza parlor and there was a police officer there, the badge and everything, the belt. And you guys cops wear a lot of stuff now. It's like, what is that, like 100 pounds?
Yeah, it's a lot. The vest and all that good stuff. Yep.
I just start talking to him, and at first he's real suspicious, like, who is this guy? And I just start talking to him.
Yeah.
It's a fellow human being. That's what I treated him as. And before you know it, we're in like a half-hour conversation. I didn't ask questions about being a cop. We were just having a conversation about life. And
anything and everything. Yeah.
It worked out really well. I never saw him again, probably never will. But why not,
Yep. Why not?
Yeah. So that was
there's a lot of human factor, that's just missing these days.
Well, I kind of figured he probably runs into the worst, as you said. So why not give him some of the best?
Yeah. Let us see something a little different. Absolutely. That makes total sense.
Yeah. And while we were talking, this guy who's obviously from prison, he has prison tats and things, come up and joins the friggin' conversation.
Wow.
He saw somebody being nice to the cop. He joins the conversation and asks a few questions with the cop. Cop's like, fine. Answers the questions. Everybody's treating everybody human. It went fine.
Wow.
This guy looked pretty rough.
It's got to get those spider senses down a little bit, make them a little less intense, right?
Yeah, like maybe cover up the tattoos in the neck, But he seemed to be a nice guy. I probably wouldn't let him loose in my house, but
Yeah, no, he's not staying with me. But yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I'm sure you have your share of adventures as a police officer.
Yeah, I've seen everything: homicide, suicide, motor vehicle accidents, all of the dark side of humanity, all the things that man does to each other, and it was at that point where I began to see that there's a lot of people that are lost out there. They kind of, it seems like they don't really have a direction. They're missing a map maybe. Sometimes they just needed compassion, a little bit of empathy, that kind of thing, and someone to care about the situation they're in, someone to care about them as a person, see them as a person, like you just said. So yeah, I've had to pull my gun many times as an officer. There's been many times I've been shot at. Yeah, there's a lot of sticky situations. Spent a lot of time dealing with people.
I'm sure when you were shot at, you turned into Wesley Snipes or one of those guys. It's just, become.
No, it was more of a, oh my God. And I kind of, whoop, I got to back up, back up, back up, back up. You know, it was interesting. Yeah, really interesting. I had that. I was terrified. So yeah, absolutely. But relied on my training and got out of the area and got behind cover. And it was pretty scary, even to this day when I think about it. But real close calls.
I've been watching a channel called Only Cops. And what they do,
Wow.
they critique body cam videos and they critique a couple of cop shows. And
Yeah.
interesting what body cam show. It's like, don't you guys realize you're wearing body cams? You're
Yeah. And
doing.
I came in the age before body cams. They didn't exist when I was an officer. I was an officer from 93 to 2001. And they didn't have them in my department, and so we didn't. A lot of times it was a lot of that armchair quarterback. We got a couple of seconds to make
Yep.
a life changing decision, and then people have got years to look back at it and go, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. So yeah. And we didn't have them. I was kind of it's kind of a different era.
I think body cams are a super good thing. They really changed, I think, the police departments, and they certainly changed my impression of police because now I get to see that 2 seconds of response time or one
Yeah.
second or less.
Yep. Yeah.
It I think wearing body cams is probably the best thing that the police officers have done.
Yeah, it's able to bring you to the scene as a witness, and nobody can make anything up. No one can interject an opinion. You got to witness it. So yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Well, I mean, everybody's using cameras now. They're taking pictures of videos of it. So you need the counter of that because those videos they put on TikTok usually have the
One
circumstances
side,
cut off. Yeah.
one side.
How did this person get into this situation? They leave that out
Yeah,
because it's not as dramatic.
yeah, absolutely.
So you said you also, I'm sure you do other things than have done other things than being a police officer. That's just interesting to me. So talk about those. You're a divorced father of 5.
Yeah, it's father of 5. Yep, divorced twice. Matter of fact. So it's let's put it this way. When I went to cancer treatment, chemo, radiation, I had 3 tumors, in my shoulder and 2 in my chest, and went through all that. I had to go through a pericardiocentesis and all this. And when I went back to the streets as an officer, I realized that my attitude towards death and towards loss and towards, because I'd come so close myself, had changed. And I thought I had lost the edge, I guess you could say. I just didn't feel like and I didn't want to ride a desk. So I left the PD in 2001 and I started in IT. I started working with Cricket Wireless at that time and
Okay.
as a trainer. And it was really kind of the only job in town at that point that was available fairly quickly. And so I jumped into that and been in IT ever since. Worked for Dell Computer Corporation out of Nashville for a little while in their help desk and worked my way up literally through the help desk and then on to senior support and then system administrator or network administrator and system administrator, eventually IT director and IT manager, and then became COO of
Nice.
a MSP here in California. And then I became the CIO for the city of Madera, California for some time. And then now where I'm at is Chief Technology Officer for the Santa Rosa Rancheria Tachioku tribe in Central California.
Nice. Yeah, I was the director of computer operations at Trader Joe's.
Oh,
They wouldn't make me CIO because I don't have a degree. And they
yes.
required that. And it's like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't need a
Yeah,
degree.
I'd say I've got a degree.
And my boss had a degree in music. Like that really helped.
Yeah. Oh, if you got a degree in botany, you're good to go, right?
Yeah. Well, factor was a degree. So that's when I left Trader Joe's. That was one of the factors and became a writer. But that's a very nice career. I find it very interesting.
Oh, years in the trenches. And again, watching people, listening to, and being treated badly, being treated horribly by some of the supervisors, some of the leaders. Went to IDEX Corporation for a while, and when I went to IDEX, I met a guy who really changed my life, El Amico. He was my supervisor at that time, and the guy he listened to me. I felt heard. He treated me as though I mattered. Every day, every conversation, no matter what the crisis was, I mattered. And to me that was life changing for me. I thought, and that's when it kicked into high gear for me to say, there's got to be a different way to interact with people to get results, to get results. And so the old ways just weren't making sense. And then as I continue to go up that rung, I started to see, we saw Gen X and millennial and so on and so forth, and we saw
Right.
how that paradigm is changing, and you can't engage them the same way and get results, so I really had to become a great student.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Tell me what the difference between a CIO and a CTO is.
Well, I don't think there's much difference. I think the CIO, a CTO is just someone who's looking out for the technology side of things and hardware and a lot of the day-to-day operational infrastructure, disaster recovery, and antivirus and cybersecurity things. Whereas a CIO probably would be more, in my opinion, a CIO would be more of a overall infrastructure design of, well, in the city it was a police department, a fire department, a public works department, parks and rec department. There's so many other departments, and as a CIO, you're just literally overseeing all aspects of that city's operation. And we're here at the government of just the rancheria side, so we have a huge, in this native reservation, you've got an enterprise side, which is a huge casino and all kinds of other enterprises. And I'm not over that side. I handle just the government. So I think this technology part CTO is literally a guy who just deals with the daily grind of and making sure the sysadmins and net admins are
Got him.
are doing what they got to do, and that the help desk is functioning the way it should.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a VP of MIS. We didn't actually have a C level for
There you
MIS.
go.
So I was directly under him. And
Interesting. Very
yeah,
cool.
that was interesting times that I'm happy to be gone from. I was in corporate for 33 years as a VP twice, and then
Wow.
and finally decided, why am I working for corporate? All my effort is
Yeah.
going for somebody else. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm a
Yeah.
ghostwriter now. And it's hard.
Absolutely.
It can be hard, but
Yeah. There's so many different books that you've got out there, and that's pretty awesome.
I've written over 100 in 11 years.
That's quite an achievement.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, did you say you were writing a book?
Yeah, I'm writing a book that kind of outlines what I've kind of touched on here. It's a book. It's a book that kind of brings a little bit of who I am and my experience growing up, my experience. The book is at this time, it's a working title, but it's going to be called My Pastor, My Father,
Okay.
My Dad, kind of thing. And within those three dynamics, it discusses how I had a dad, but he was a pastor, right? He was, also more. There was a father role, there was a dad, because there's a difference between a dad and a father. For me, it takes someone special to be a dad, as the saying would say. And so I think there's a dynamic there in growing up in the household, super strict, super guidelines, and then getting into law enforcement and feeling that dynamic, going into more of a, with IDEX and moving out of that sysadmin, net admin field into management, realizing that it's more of an outline of how to engage folks. And basically the first part is what I've learned, how I grew up, what were my influences, and then how I adapted those and changed those. Of course, had to spend some time in therapy and, spend a lot of time micro learning, right? And really just trying to dig deep and get into guys like Simon Sinek and, just there's so many of these, Chris Voss. They've got books out there that just really dig into, and Chris Voss was the former lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. But just it talks about the dynamic of human interaction and how to lead folks. Sometimes you got to lead from the back. Sometimes you got to lead from the middle. Sometimes you lead from the front, and not everybody's the same. So the book just kind of outlines my method in working with my crew, my people,
Nice.
my team, and how I lead them effectively. Because let's be real, I've got one guy who's a headbanger. I've got another guy who's completely quiet, just games all night, and he's 35, and the headbanger is 50 something, and then I've got another individual who's two individuals from another country, and how do you reach all these different people and then keep them all pulling in one direction? Because not the same tactics work with the same people. So it's interesting. So that's what the book is.
Of course, yeah. I had a Pakistani and not a Pakistani, Palestinian and an Israeli working in the same office.
Oh, wow.
That was interesting.
That's, that could be colorful. I can
We
promise you
had to
that.
separate them a few times.
More than once, I'm sure.
Yeah. Good. You're writing this book as a branding exercise or just because?
Yeah, just because I feel like I need to get it from here and from here out.
Okay.
Hopefully there are some individuals out there who maybe can identify with my struggle or or even have something to add, or just even they get one piece from that, and it helps them be a
Nice.
better leader or a better director. That would be great.
So has it flowed naturally, or have you had to struggle with it?
I've had to struggle with being vulnerable. I've had to struggle with being honest. I've had to struggle with saying things, exposing things to the world that I never thought I'd drag back out into the light. So it has been, at times, it's been a real struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest parts is that as a ghostwriter, I encounter is people have to tell me things that they wouldn't normally tell. And sometimes they don't want it in the book, and sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But I need the
Yeah.
backstory sometimes. Like, okay, how did you get in this situation? And it can get very interesting. It can
Yeah.
get very
Yeah,
interesting.
it can very, like I said, you bring out things. I discussed my divorces in there. My first divorce, it was when I had cancer. She kind of looked at me and said, "Hey, I can't take care of you and the kids too. One of you's got to go." And so that's how that went down. And then the second divorce, it was literally just a scenario where she went on with someone else, and was doing her own thing behind my back, and I happened to catch her, and that ended that. So,
And
so
today would be TikToks all over the place.
yeah, exactly. So hopefully somebody can say, "Hey, that happened to me," or "Hey, I identify with that part of your story, and that really helped." And because I was looking for that, I was looking for someone who could. I can't be alone. Someone's got to have gone through this before. This isn't new. This is a human experience. So hopefully it helps someone.
I am sure that virtually every man and probably woman have gone through the similar things, or maybe not the exact same thing, but similar. I mean, I was married for 12 and a half years and she passed away from smoking, lung disease, and COPD don't go together. Massive smoking. So
Right
it was
ahead.
a matter of time. And that was sad. But 20 years ago, you heal eventually, most of the
Yep.
time.
It's still there. It's still a little.
It
It still
surprises
sits in.
surprises me
Yeah.
every time. Sometimes it comes up. I'm like, good. I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm nowhere where anybody can see me.
Relive it again. You relive it again. Yeah, absolutely. I know.
That happens. Yeah. So how do you plan to market the book? Have you haven't thought about that at all?
Well, I'm looking at probably just independent publishing through, looking at Amazon, looking at a couple other opportunities, other ways to do it. I don't have anything right now set in stone. I'm about halfway through, I think. I do got a few chapters still to go, but I'm getting to that point. So it's a very good question.
Well, I just finished a book that's going live on April 15th. It's be my 64th book that I've written for myself, and it's called The Ghostwriting Advantage. And I'm having to look at now what do I do with it, marketing it and stuff, because it's to market me, obviously.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely.
ghostwriting from your point of view. So it's not how to be a ghostwriter, it's how to use a ghostwriter and how to hire one and stuff like that.
Yeah, and how that works.
Not a lot of books
Absolutely.
on it. That's 400 pages
Yeah,
long.
and to be honest with you, there's a lot of folks out there who maybe don't understand what is this? How does that work?
Why write a book? I answer that
Yeah,
first.
yeah,
That's one of the first things I
absolutely.
address is why in the heck are you doing this in the first place? Whether you're not using a ghostwriter or not, why do you want to write a book? Go through that and all the way down to marketing and publishing and everything. So you might actually
Yes.
want to take a look at it. It goes live on the April 15th. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to look at it. Like I said, anywhere I can get pointers, anywhere I can get help, I'm ready to do that. Absolutely, I'm open to it.
Yep. Yep. So let's see. I'm looking over so you've known poverty. You cut your
Yeah.
teeth at the bottom of your industry, and you've held an office at the C-suite. We talked about that. And your father said told you, "Don't quit." That sounds like a great
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, very stern, very black and white, not any gray, and he preached his last sermon, I think, on a Wednesday night. And the last thing he said to the congregation, he'd been in this congregation leader of this congregation for 40 years. And my dad his church was never big. It was never a mega church. There were literally 4 or 5 people in the congregation. It was struggle his entire life. There was never any, big private jets or, Rolex watches. My father and mother struggled their entire lives, but I think the last thing he said in his sermon on Wednesday was, "Don't quit." He's sitting in his wheelchair and he's preaching from his wheelchair. And he says, "Don't quit. I didn't quit. So don't you quit." And I remember my dad saying that to me, and it wasn't but a week later he was gone. That resonates with me. Don't quit. Don't step away, no matter what. And when you want to, take a breather, take a step back if you have to, but don't quit. And that really stayed with me my whole life since I was a kid. he would always say that when we were boys, finish the job was another one. Don't ever do a halfway job. Don't get into something and then leave it undone. That really bugged him. So he definitely drove those home to us, me and my brother, when we were kids.
Yeah, I've got somebody I should introduce you to. He has a similar story about his father.
Wow.
And I'll send you his link on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
that'd be
My
great. Yeah.
condolences about your father. Of course,
Thank you.
it
Yeah.
happens, but it's always tough, no matter what.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's sometimes where it's just completely unbelievable, and then sometimes, like, you know how that is. Sometimes you're just okay with it. You learn. It's like losing a limb. You just learn how to function without that person.
Yep, yep, yep.
It never goes away.
Well, you've had an interesting life, and it's going to be an interesting book. I mean, I've never been shot at. I did have so I lived in an apartment, and next door, I was woken up one day by some commotion from next door. And so I peek out the door, and there's about, I would say, 20 people. They had, what did it say? The Federal Emergency Response Team for people who'd escaped from prison. And they were armed with machine guns. I mean, literally, and body armor like you see in the military, and my apartment next door. And the first thing I thought was, my walls are not bulletproof.
Yeah, I'm gonna go lay in the bathtub or something.
That's exactly what I did. The guy, it turned out the nephew of somebody who lived there, had escaped from prison. These were escaped prisoners they were looking for. So
So they knocked him down.
but he surrendered without a fight,
Very
because
cool.
these
All right,
people
well.
were ready for a fight. They were like, we're going in.
Yeah, yeah. They want the element of surprise, right?
And that was when I decided, maybe that was the fourth shooting at my apartment. Maybe it's time to
Might be
move.
time to move.
There was an accidental shooting. Somebody had an accidental release. So he was in his apartment, and it went through the wall to the other apartment next door. The guy was sitting on the toilet, and it went over his head. If he had been standing, it would have gone through his heart.
Goodness.
He said, yeah, time to move.
Yeah, time to move tomorrow.
Yeah, well, both of us pretty much moved out at the same time. It's like, okay, we're done.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah, absolutely.
you
How
know,
old were you when that happened?
it was about 6 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Okay, so
relatively
it wasn't
recent.
too far back. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, but I didn't talk to these guys, the federal guys. They look pretty mean.
Yeah, the tunnel vision. They got that one track mind when
Yeah,
they're geared
didn't
up.
want to
I
make.
remember I had to serve search warrants, and that's how we were.
I think these were no knock warrants.
Yeah, yeah. Just walk up. I was always the guy in the key because I'm 6'1", and so the key was basically a sledgehammer. So I was the guy that would run up, and whether they yelled search warrant or not, I was the guy who swung the sledgehammer and hit that doorknob and got it open so they could. And generally, after they've done their crossover, I'd come in behind. But I always had the key. They always, Holguin, you're on the key. So I said, all right, well. So every time we served a search warrant, I had the key.
Yeah, this was actually simpler. They just knocked on the door, and the guy opened it, and they said he's in there, and it was done.
That was
There wasn't
wow.
no
Okay.
violence. He wasn't going to fight. He had at least half a brain going.
No flashbangs. No smoke.
No, they didn't have to do that. So they almost looked disappointed.
Wow. Let down.
I was like, thank God, there's time to move. And the
Yeah.
place I'm at has been totally calm. Knock on wood.
That's great. That's great. It's good. It's good to have a peaceful place you can sleep at night.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
got a lake in the back, and during the hurricane we just had, there were alligators on my patio.
Wow.
There was a bobcat in a
Man.
tree looking at me like, "Can you get me down?" I'm like, "You're on your own."
Maybe they're telling you it's time to move.
Yeah, no, it was a good place to be. The hurricane was almost a Cat 5, and
Wow.
when it hit me, 145 mile an hour winds and 18 inches of rain in 3 hours.
My goodness.
The second most scary thing I've ever been in. The first being a forest fire.
Where were you at? Where you at now? Where this happened?
Yeah, it's right here.
Wow.
It was just this last year. It's very scary. The forest fire was worse. I was stuck in the middle of a forest, in the middle of a fire, and the firemen rescued me.
Evacuate you and get you out, and
they did a water drop on me, my car.
But obviously, everything's still good. You didn't lose your home.
No, I decided at that point it's time to move off the mountain. So this is Lake Arrowhead.
Wow.
A 220,000 acre fire, I think, is a big one.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Well,
they got me out. Thank God.
That's amazing.
Otherwise, I would have been finding out what the next life is.
Podcasts from beyond, right?
That would be a cool podcast.
That would be a cool one, absolutely.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time. Got any final words for our visitors?
I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and just carry on this conversation and interact with you. Rich, I really appreciate it. It's been very cathartic. Helps me to open up, and it's been very unscripted. I love that. It's fantastic. So thank you so much.
My favorite kind. We're not following a script. We're just having a conversation among,
Yeah,
among people.
absolutely. Yep,
All right.
absolutely.
Well, thank you for coming on. This has been the Leaders and Their Stories podcast. I am the writing king and ghostwriting guru. Oh, do you have a website or something where people can reach you?
Just right now, I've got just the LinkedIn. It should be just linkedin.com, and then Daniel Holguin, Holguin Sr. SR.
Great.
So, and they'll find me there.
Great. Hopefully none of those criminals you arrested are looking for you and find it. No, just kidding. Anyway, well, thank you for watching, and that's it for tonight.